I'm Bia, and welcome back to Cardiac Radio for Teens. Cardiac Radio for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens and together learn about spiritist teachings and topics in a way that's more relatable to us and in words that we can easily understand. So last week we read a couple of sections in the Spirits book, and the one we left off on in the middle of was called Occult Powers, Talisman, and Sorcerers. So here what we're talking about is these supernatural powers. So now we're not talking about, like we just talked about, the natural powers and the powers of the spirits, but now we're talking about when people believe in wizards and they believe in objects that have power. So what do we think of these as spiritists? And we left off on question 555, so let's get right to it. What are sorcerers? And the spirits answered, when they are of good faith, those whom you call sorcerers are persons who possess certain faculties, such as magnetic powers or second sight. Since they do things that you do not comprehend, you suppose them to be endowed to supernatural power. Haven't you learned individuals often been mistaken for sorcerers in the eyes of ignorant? So here what they're saying is, quite simply, they're saying that sorcerers, they're people who just have some of these kind of, what we can call them powers, but that we're already kind of familiar with, like second sight or magnetic power. So it's these things that we already kind of know the concept of, but since when people see this, they don't know how to explain it, they assume it must be some supernatural thing. But we've already explained these kind of things, second sight and magnetic power. So just because we don't understand them doesn't mean it's supernatural. It is natural, we just don't know about it. And especially, and us as spiritists right now, we're learning about it, but some people, they're not even learning about it. So to them, it's really foreign. But it is something natural, but we just have to learn it. And then Allan Kardec puts his own comment in, and he says, Spiritism and magnetism give us the key to an infinite number of phenomena, about which ignorance has woven many fables, and which in fact have been greatly exaggerated by the imagination. A clear known of these two sciences, which are actually but one, showing the reality of things and their true cases, is the best protection against superstitious ideas, because they reveal what is possible and what is impossible, what is within the laws of nature, and what is no more than a foolish belief. So here what he's explaining is that once we know these things, which we are already on the process of learning because we've been reading through the Spirits book together and learning more information as we go, but if you know this concept of spiritism and magnetism, and the more you know it, the more you'll realize that all these phenomena, all these miracles, all these supernatural things, they do fit in the laws of nature. And there is an explanation for it. But when these people, especially when it was, let's say, back in time, they see these phenomena or they see these miracles happening, and they don't know how to explain it. They don't understand it. So they resorted to making little stories out of it or making it into something that it's not. They imagine it because they don't know about spiritism and magnetism, so they just think it's a phenomena, and maybe they over-exaggerate it or they put it into a grand story. But us learning it, we're getting to that step of knowing the knowledge of these sciences and then being able to determine, okay, well, this phenomena, yes, that was amazing, but there's this and this behind it. And of course, it's also important to remember that sometimes these fables of these big miracles that happened, sometimes if it's not actually possible through spiritism and magnetism, then it's just a foolish belief. It could just be something that someone made up and it didn't actually happen. So we don't have to believe all these little stories and say, oh, the spirits must have did this or that. Because sometimes it is just something someone made up. But when it is true, we know that there is this spiritism, magnetism behind it. It's not just miraculously happening. Question 556. Do certain individuals really possess the gift of healing by simple touch? So, can people actually heal others by their touch, just by touching them? And the spirits answered, their magnetic power may act to that extent which it is aided by purification of sentiment and an ardent desire to do good, for then good spirits come to their aid. It is necessary, however, to distrust the way stories are told by very gullible or enthusiastic individuals, who are always ready to see the miraculous in the simplest and most natural things. One must always distrust the self-interested claim of persons who exploit cruelty for their own profit. So the thing is that, yes, these people are using magnetic power to heal people, but there's a very big distinction that we have to be aware of. There are these very good spirits who have just pure intentions, and since they're just trying to help people purely, they're not wanting anything for themselves. They're really just trying to help. They're a good elevated spirit. Then they have good spirits that will help them, and then they'll be able to kind of heal, like the question says. They'll be able to heal or help that person because of that good spirit that's just trying to help and all the spirits that are helping that spirit. But, however, we do need to recognize that sometimes we shouldn't just trust everyone that says they can do this, because, okay, maybe they can, maybe they do have magnetic power, but maybe they have different reasons. If they're doing it just for themselves, just to get money, then they're not thinking about others. They're not thinking about the benefit of others. They're just thinking, the more people I help, the more money I'll make. And then that's when they have their own interest, and the good spirits aren't going to be really helping them. So you know that their power, it's not going to be as good or effective, and it's not coming from the right intentions. So yes, there are people that do this, but we have to make sure that they're good spirits who we know will be accompanied by other good spirits, not just any spirit who is trying to make money. And that was the end of that section, and the next section, it's just one question, but it's titled Blessings and Curses. Question 557. Can blessings and curses attract good or evil spirits to those at whom they are aimed? So, can blessings and curses, can they really attract good and evil spirits? And the spirits answered, God does not listen to unjust curses, and those who utter them are guilty before God. Since we have two opposing tendencies, good and evil, there may be momentary influences in these cases, even upon matter. This influence never occurs, however, without God's permission, as an increase in the trial for one at whom it is aimed. Besides, most frequently, curses are usually aimed at the wicked, while blessings are aimed at the morally upright. Blessings and curses can never divert providence from the path of justice. Providence does not strike those who are cursed unless they are wicked, and its protection does not cover those who do not deserve it. So here, what's really important to keep in mind is that it's all up to God. And if I'm just here and I'm just mad at someone and I say, oh, I'm gonna put a curse on them, if it's unjust and it doesn't make any sense and that's not what God wants at all, then it's not gonna happen at all. Or maybe if God sees not a curse, not putting a curse on the person, but maybe if something a little bad happens to them, maybe it's just a trial that God permitted to put in their way because they need that to help evolve. But just a curse for no reason, there's no way that would benefit anyone, so God wouldn't let that happen. And also blessings. I did nothing, but just because I did nothing doesn't mean I did something good. There's a distinction between doing something good and maybe deserving some good feedback or some good thing, but if you're doing nothing, that doesn't mean you're doing good, but that doesn't mean you're doing evil, which is good. You're not doing evil, but you're also not taking that extra step. So, like they said here, it's not going to protect those who don't deserve it. If you're not trying to do something, if you're not actively trying to grow and learn, even though you're not doing anything bad, you still might not deserve that sort of thing. So, of course, it is up to God and what God wants to allow and what's going to keep us on the path towards perfection. And now we have reached chapter 10, which is titled Occupations and Missions of Spirits. Question 558. Do spirits have any other duty besides their own personal improvement? So basically, like, do spirits have jobs is what we're saying. Do they have another duty besides just making themselves better? And the spirits answered, they concur in the harmony of the universe and act as ministers in fulfilling God's will. Spirit life is a continuous occupation, but it is not all arduous like that of earth, because it is not subject to bodily fatigue or the anguish of need. So, here they're saying that, yeah, in the spirit world, the whole spirit life, it's a continuous duty. They're continuously doing things. There's continuously stuff to be done, especially if you think about something so grand as keeping the harmony in the universe. And there's always things to be done, but it doesn't seem like a job, because it's not like they're going to get tired, because they don't have these material bodies. So the material bodies aren't going to get tired, they're not going to get weak or old, they'll always be able to keep going. But it's important to know that they don't just go to the spirit world and then sit around all day. They're always doing something. They're working on something, they're keeping harmony of something, and they are always continuously doing something. Question 559. Do less evolved spirits also perform a useful role in the universe? So, of course, okay, the good spirits are going to do all these good things, and the more evolved spirits, they're going to have higher things. But what about the less evolved spirits? Do they have something? And the spirits answered, all duties to fulfill. Doesn't the least of masons concur in the construction of a building as much as the architect does? So if we think about it, doesn't in building a building, they're saying here, in constructing a building, there's the architect who designed the whole thing, but then there's maybe the assistant of the assistant of the assistant. But that assistant is still doing something. He still has a job, and it might not be as important or as big as being the architect himself, but he is still working on it. He still has something to do. So less evolved spirits that do have something to do, they won't have something as important or as grand, but there will be something for them to do. Question 560. Does each spirit have special attributes? So here they're quite simply asking, so do spirits have special qualities to them? And the spirits answered, it is worth stating that we all must inhabit all places and must acquire knowledge of all things, successively presiding over functions involving all the planes of the universe. However, as Ecclesiastes states, there is a time for everything. Thus, one spirit is currently fulfilling its destiny on this world, while another will accomplish or has already accomplished its destiny at another time, on earth, in water, in air, etc. So, what they're saying here is, I guess some spirits might have some quality that they're working on right now, but the goal is to get to perfection. So that means being able to do everything. That means having all of these good qualities. It's not just good enough to have one quality or another. They need to have all these qualities. So, but they do work on these one at a time. So right now, this spirit might be working on one thing, that spirit might be working on another thing, but eventually they're gonna switch and they'll be working on the other's jobs, and so that they're able to do everything. Question 561. Are the functions that spirits perform in the order of things permanent for each spirit, or do such functions belong exclusively to the attributes of certain orders? So these functions that the spirits are performing, is it permanent for each of the spirits, or is it of a certain order, okay, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that? And the spirits answered, all spirits must ascend the various degrees of the scale in order to perfect themselves. Since God is just, God cannot have given knowledge without effort to some, while others acquire it only in a painful manner. So everyone must go through all the steps. Like we said, if we think about it as a ladder, you can't skip to the top. Everyone has to go through all the steps, and it wouldn't be fair if people just got, oh, we need you in this job, so you just skip 3 steps. No, you have to start at the same level all the way at the bottom and eventually get your way up there. And then Allan Kardec put his own comment in. He says, likewise, Among humans, no one reaches the supreme degree of skill in any art without having acquired the necessary knowledge by practicing the most elementary function of that art. So what he's saying is this is just like humans. You don't get to a job and say, okay, like we're talking about the assistant. The assistant doesn't show up there and say, okay, I want to be the architect now. And all that information is magically given to him to be the architect. No, he has to start out as the assistant and work his way up and learn all of these things, eventually to have enough knowledge to become the architect. You can't just jump there in a split second. So you do have to start at the elementary stuff and work your way up. Even here, even on Earth, we do that. So why would that be different in the spirit world? You can't just skip the line in the spirit world. You still have to follow this path. Question 562. Since spirits of the most advanced order have nothing more to acquire, are they in a state of absolute repose, or do they still have occupations? So spirits of advanced orders, basically, once you got to perfection, what do? Do you retire? Do you keep doing different jobs? You do one job? What do you do after that? And the spirits answered, what do you think they are doing for all eternity? Eternal idleness would be eternal torture. So here they're kind of saying, the spirits are kind of being like, what do you think they do for forever, basically, for eternity? If they're just, once they got to perfection, they retire, what are they going to do for the rest of forever? And if just doing nothing, just being like, oh, I reached perfection, I'm just going to sit here, that would be like torture for them, to just sit there day after day, just for all of eternity. So, of course they're going to be doing something. They will have something to do. And the spirits, and then they asked another question, and they said, what is the nature of their occupation? So, okay, they're obviously not just sitting there, because that would be torture. So what are they doing? And the spirits answered, receiving orders directly from God, transmitting them throughout the universe, and supervising their execution. So now, this is what happened. They worked their way all the way to the top of this ladder. They reached perfection, or they're almost at perfection. So they're all the way at the top of this ladder. So now, they're receiving orders directly from God. It's not orders from God and then from a higher order spirit. They're receiving orders directly from God, and they're going to different parts of the universe and different things, and now they're supervising. So they worked from being that assistant of the assistant to now they're getting there, and now they're the supervisor. So now they're watching over to make sure that everything is being done correctly. Question 563. Are the occupations of spirits unceasing? So are these jobs always going? And the spirits answered, unceasing, yes, if we understand that their thought is always active, for they live by thought. Yet, one must not equate their occupation with the material occupations of humans. Their very activity is a delight because they know they are being useful. So what they're saying here is that, yes, their job is unceasing. There's no, pause, because if you think about it, spirits are doing things through their thought, through their mind. So they're just doing things through their thought. So it's not like they're physically doing something and then they stop. It's through their thought, so your thought can always keep happening. And of course, we can't relate it to here where, yes, many people enjoy going to work, but they also enjoy when there's a break. These spirits, they love what they're doing because they know they're being useful. So they don't mind at all, and they don't have these bodies, these material bodies that get tired and want to break. They can just keep going because it's just their thought. So it does go on kind of forever, unceasingly. It doesn't stop because there's no reason for it to stop. And then there's a second part to this question, and it says, that is understandable for good spirits, but does the same apply to less evolved ones? So here they're saying, okay, well, obviously good spirits are going to enjoy just working, but are less evolved spirits going to enjoy working? And the spirits answered, less evolved spirits have occupations suitable for their nature. Would you entrust the work of cultured individuals to manual laborers? So, of course, the less evolved spirits, they're at less evolved positions. The God and the higher spirits, they understand. They understand that these less evolved spirits are not going to be to want to work as hard or work all the time, and they know how these spirits are. So they're going to have occupations and things to do that fit within who they are. Stuff that God and the higher spirits know they are capable of. So it's not like they're going to get these less evolved spirits and give them the job of supervising a planet. They're not going to have those kind of jobs. They are going to have a lesser low level job in which they are capable of handling. Question 564. Are there among spirits those who are idle, or who do not occupy themselves with anything useful? So, are there spirits who just do nothing, who literally have no occupation because they maybe refuse to make themselves useful, or there's nothing they can do? And the spirits answered, yes, but it is temporary, and depends on the development of their intelligence. Certainly, as among humans, there are those who live only for themselves. Such idleness, nothing the less, weighs on them, and sooner or later the desire to progress stirs the need for activity, and they are glad to make themselves useful once again. We are speaking of spirits who have arrived at the necessary point in self-consciousness and free will, for at their origin they are like newborn children, who act more from instinct than from determined will. So, there are these spirits who, just like on Earth, there's people who only think about themselves. So there's people that only think about themselves and only live for themselves, and they don't care about anyone else except for them. So when they get to the spirit world, what are the odds that they're going to try and do a job that's going to make them useful and help others? They don't want that. So they might be idle, but it's just for a certain period. First, no one's telling them to be idle, but it just might be, it's temporary, and it's just for them to get the understanding that, okay, if I do want to get better, if I do want to progress, I'm going to have to do something. So then they'll start doing something, sort of as of like, I have to do something to get better. They're not going to be like, oh, I really want to help these people now. They're not going to automatically switch, but they will start thinking, okay, if I want to get better, if I want to get to the higher rank, I'm going to need to do something. And then they'll start doing something. But at first, they might just be a little stubborn about helping others, so they might be idle temporarily. Question 565. Do spirits examine our works of art and take an interest in them? So now they're saying, do spirits, our works of art, are there any interest to spirits? Or are they at a lower level that they don't even care about our art? And the spirit said, they examine anything that may indicate the elevation of spirits and their progress. So here, that was an interesting answer from the spirits. They said, the spirits, they're going to analyze and examine everything that shows that there's progress. So this shows that there's elevation, shows this good that's happening. And art is a way that there is a lot of, you can tell that there's a lot of elevation and progress when you see someone's art. So if it's worthy and if it's showing something to them, they will analyze it and examine it. Question 566. Does a spirit who had a specialty on earth, a painter or an architect, for example, take a special interest in the works that they were object of its predilection during life? So here basically the question's asking, so if on earth this person was a painter or an architect or something of that sort, and then when they go to the spirit world, are they going to kind of be drawn towards that kind of stuff? And the spirit said, everything blends in an overall objective. If the spirit is good, it will take an interest in them to the degree that they enable it to help with the evolution of souls towards God. Besides, you are forgetting that spirits who practice an art during the lifetime in which you knew them could have practiced another in a previous lifetime, because it is necessary for them to know everything in order to perfect themselves. Thus, according to their degree of advancement, it might be that nothing constitutes a specialty for them. This is what I meant when I stated that everything blends into an overall objective. Also, Be aware of this. What is sublime to you in your backwards world is no more than children's play when compared with what exists on more advanced worlds. Why would you suppose that the spirit who inhabited those worlds, where there are arts unknown to you, would admire what would appear to them as no more than the work of a school child? As I have already stated, they examine whatever may indicate progress. So what they're saying here is, the first point they're bringing up is that just because, this person was an artist in this life, but they might have been, it's not just because they were an artist in this life, because they might have been an artist for several lives now to be able to perfect that, because you can't really perfect anything just in one life. So most things take several incarnations to perfect. So maybe they've been an artist for many lives, and that's why they're drawn to it. But in the scheme of things, that means that, maybe they went through being an architect, and they perfected being an architect. So now they moved on to learning how to be an artist, and then they perfected being an artist, and now they moved on to being a doctor. So, because, like we said, to reach perfection, it's knowing everything. So we have to go through everything, and we have to try everything, and we have to perfect everything. That's what perfection will be. So maybe, they already did architect, they already did artist, they already did doctor, so they could technically be drawn towards any of those. So it's not like just because they were an artist in this life, they're going to be drawn to art in the spirit world, because there's many other things that they've done and that they've perfected already. And also, of course, we can't assume that just because they were good architects here or good painters here, that they're going to be any good compared to high advanced worlds, because our world is not very advanced. Earth is not very advanced. So there are worlds where it's so much more advanced that their art is probably something unimaginable to us. So their art compared to this painter's art from Earth, it wouldn't really stand in comparison. And then there's a second part to this question, and it says, we understand why such must be the case with highly advanced spirits, but we are speaking more about commonplace spirits who have not yet raised themselves above earthly ideas. So, I understand that the higher order spirits, they've already gone through lots of occupations and they've seen lots of other things, but what about the low order spirits? And the spirits answered, their case is different. Their point of view is more limited, and they may admire what you yourself admire. So yes, the less order spirits, they're more limited, of course, because they're less evolved. They don't have all this knowledge and all this sight. So they might admire the same things that we do. So that's where we'll leave off today, but before we leave, I'd like to read our message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone for today's date, December 19th. This one's titled Sympathy. There is nothing sweeter than to be sympathized with. I'm so sorry. If there's anything I can do, please tell me. We love the person who says this to us. No longer a recitation of that person's own problems, no unasked for advice, just an affirmation that someone else understands who we are and why we feel the way we do. We don't want pity, we want sympathy. We want to be recognized, and we want our circumstances to be recognized. That's all, but it's everything. If someone I know is in trouble, I'll listen, really listen. I want to hear what the person says so I can understand what is going on and be honestly sympathetic. If at all you guys have any questions, comments, concern, anything you want to talk about at all, feel free to email me at cardiacradioforteens@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you right away.
I'm Bia, and this has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.
This has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.